My name is Jason Shepherd here in Provo, Utah. He is a man that as soon as this show is over, he's going to go find a cornfield and play baseball. He is Spencer Linton.
Is this heaven, Jason? No, it's Iowa State and Jack Trice Stadium. It is a fantastic campus and sports setup here. And if you haven't seen the BYUtv big story that we did on Jack Trice, the namesake of this stadium, you need to watch it. Incredible. The first black athlete to have a stadium named after him. Remarkable stuff. And frankly, we put out another incredible big story this week on the Carr family and wrestling. This is a sports city, sports state, sports community, and they do it big when the Cyclones are in town. It's homecoming weekend as well. Can't wait for a huge game tomorrow, Jason.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. In fact, let's talk about it. All rise and shout. It's time for What's Trending.
Next up, trip to Ames, Iowa.
It was a very good football team, and they got our whole focus and attention. The offense is outstanding.
Chase Roberts, a touchdown!
Defense is outstanding.
Intercepted! Takes it away!
Win this game, that's it.
Bear keeps running! Bear keeps running! There's a bear on the loose in Provo!
Ah, yes, the call from Jason Benetti, who joined us on the show yesterday. It's another game day eve for BYU football. The number 11th ranked Cougars on the road at Iowa State tomorrow. BYU, a 2.5-point underdog. So, Spencer, what's on the line for BYU tomorrow?
I've quoted him a few times this week, Jason, but in the words of comedian Nate Bargatze, everything, all of it, is on the line for BYU tomorrow. It feels like it anyway, starting with a potential top 10 ranking. There are enough close ranked matchups happening tomorrow that there is a real chance that if BYU wins this game, they'll be in the top 10 going into their second bye week, which would be remarkable. That would also keep BYU in the top 10 when the first college football playoff rankings are released, I believe. I could be wrong there, but typically it's the first week of November. And BYU would be a top 10 team and unbeaten if they can just survive Iowa State, which to me says that they have an inside track to play in the Big 12 championship in Arlington. If BYU can get to 8-0 and then have 2 weeks to prepare for Texas Tech and Lubbock, we'll see what happens. And yeah, it just confirmed to me that it's November 4th, those first college football playoff rankings. So all of that is in play. Like the idea of being 8-0 and going into that second bye and being on a path to 10+ wins, man, again, I know it's only one game, but so much rides on this contest. And then there's this weird stat, Jason. BYU has played 5 games against Iowa State and have never beaten the Cyclones. Yeah. Like, that's weird. You've played them 5 times and you haven't been able to find a win. I know that a couple of them came in the 60s and then when early in Lavelle Edwards' career. And then recently it's been reintroduced because of Big 12 play. But really, BYU's never beaten Iowa State? The Cougars also could use a signature road resume win. They got a signature win against Utah last week on their home field. But it'd be nice to do something on the road and to back that back up, saying, hey, you know, in back-to-back weeks, BYU beat ranked Utah. They won at Iowa State as an underdog. So when I say everything, all of it is on the line, I'm not kidding, Jason. This is a massive, massive game. What would you add to the conversation?
Well, I wanna go back to a point that you made in terms of what's BYU obviously is still one of the few unbeatens in college football. And so to be able to keep that up, certainly that's big, but it's big for another reason. And it's that you just get the sense that BYU is not going to get the benefit of the doubt with a loss, or that they may drop further than you would expect with a loss, just based off of how we've seen BYU climb their way up. It seems like they would have had some opportunities to be a little bit higher earlier, but BYU wasn't given the benefit of the doubt. And a lot of people are like, I still want to learn more about BYU. So I'm concerned that if BYU doesn't win this game, that the Cougars, from a national perspective, and those that have the votes and those types of things, are going to penalize BYU a little harsher than maybe they would someone else. So that concerns me a little bit. But, obviously BYU can just handle their own business and not have to worry about that. I think the other thing that you want to do, look, these next 2 games for BYU they're going to be what's telling in terms of the Cougars' ability to get to Arlington. Regardless of, you look at that game at Texas Tech, that's a few weeks down the line, that's huge. If you're able to win this game this weekend in Ames, you're still going to want to win at Texas Tech, but I feel like you've got a little bit of leeway if it doesn't go your way in Lubbock. If you lose this game, you almost have to win that game against Texas Tech. So I think that's why there's a lot riding on this game for BYU. And the good news is, I know they're an underdog. I still think they're the better team. I think they're the better tested team, and they're playing better. Now, I get Iowa State's getting some players back that will help them, but BYU is on a roll right now, and I think they go in and they take care of business because they are the better team, even on the road against an opponent they haven't beaten before.
Sure. And then there is the idea that BYU, because of what happened last year after that emotional win against Utah, and they were on that high and they came back home and they laid an egg against Kansas and ran into some real struggles and made some uncharacteristic mistakes. Kalani Sitake, not surprisingly, in his post-game locker room after BYU beat Utah again, was already talking about, hey, you remember what happened last year? We can't allow that to happen again. We have to stay humble, stay hungry. But can BYU ultimately avoid the big win hangover in that rivalry and come on the road and get it done? We're going to learn a lot of things about both of these teams tomorrow, Jason. Cannot wait. This is what college football is about. Saturday afternoon, Fox National again. Jason Benetti and RG3 on the call again for a second consecutive week. This is the chance that BYU can say, no, we are legitimately a Big 12 championship contender if they win this game.
All right, biggest concern for you, Spencer? What's going into this game, and we kind of touched on a few of them. What is your biggest concern heading into tomorrow afternoon's matchup?
How much time do we have, Jason? Because we could be here for a while. Let's just go ahead and start with, this is a make or break the season type game for Iowa State. They've already lost 2 straight. If they lose a third, any chance of playing in the Big 12 championship game again and getting back to Dallas for them, gone, out the window. This is a circle the wagons, rally the troops, whatever cliche you want to use. They are hunkering down. All of it is happening for Iowa State because they know that they have to win out, starting with this game against BYU, if they do want to be in the Big 12 championship game conversation again. So the fact that it's homecoming weekend, it's going to be a raucous, sellout crowd. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for BYU. That might be the most underrated aspect of this in terms of concerns. They have had 2 full weeks of preparation to get ready for a very, very disciplined team. And their quarterback, Rocco Becht, hasn't been as sharp per se, but he's still really good. So what does he try and do against BYU with his arm specifically to try and test BYU's cornerbacks and put some pressure on the Cougars on their home field? What can BYU do in a raucous environment when it does get weird? I know that they've won road games against Colorado and Arizona. This is different, Jason. This is a different beast. Over 61,000 fans. How does BYU and their true freshman quarterback, Bear Bachmeier, respond when inevitably there is some of that weirdness and that pressure put on him? How do you see it from a concern standpoint?
Yeah, I think my biggest concern is and you touched on it, this is an offense and a defense that's been struggling. And obviously injuries have played a big role in why both sides of the ball have not been as consistent as they started the season out when they were a top 25 team. They are getting some players back. What I'm concerned with is that all of the struggles we've seen, they all of a sudden find their rhythm. and then they start building that confidence back that they had when they were viewed, and we all viewed them as one of the top teams in the Big 12. So I think that's my biggest concern. And, starting out strong, if they come out and they're able to score on their opening drive and they look really efficient, that's what I'm hoping to avoid, is that a struggling team does not find their confidence, especially at home when we know that they get uplifted at home and that place is going to be crazy. I think that's my biggest concern. BYU's got to find a way to make sure that even with some of the players coming back, whether it's Carson Hansen at running back, possibly on the defensive line, getting their big guy up the middle, Orange, BYU's got to make sure this team continues to be frustrated on the football field. So that's probably where I go in terms of my biggest concern.